Hello everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast as part of the Hyphenate. This audio podcast as part of the BRIX and Bash. This audio podcast as part of the Squall and Crisis and Inspectorate. This audio podcast as part of an interlude and a Storm Lobostics production. Through this audio podcast, a look at social media or mainstream media. I look at social media, and mainstream media, and to prompt solid organ transplantation education and sort of a look at this from a CKD and healthcare professional perspective. So a bit of intro. So with exception to individuals with severe sort of learning difficulties and sort of neurological sort of conditions or illnesses, which of course are devastating, There has never existed a human being who has not been aware not of his or her sort of body, but also of his or her individuality, both physical and spiritual. Human beings are consciously aware of own lives, and it's through understanding that awareness of a consciously constructed self is identified. The use of social media, for example, today provides sort of unparalleled opportunity to provide or offer and receive sort of access to sort of information, and to access to information sort of educational sort of resources, and sort of offer sort of a offer opportunity to offer opportunities for for sort of a sense of interconnectivity through, for example, interconnectivity by way of information communication technology, or ICT. So social media, mainstream media, such as, for example, television, newspapers, magazines, radio stations, tend to also be used to prompt in around important sort of aspects of healthcare services, but also in some in by some way in around sort of an awareness of in around in around sort of long term or long standing conditions. So these forms of these sort of have at the same time, these sort of platforms have not been investigated in detail to prompt organ donation or transplantation education. Certainly, use of social media, for example, is not limited by constraints of time and geography. Social media, and now looking at sort of social media, mainstream media and healthcare. So social media usage has grown exponentially, now representing sort of more than 1 in 5 minutes spent online, and where patients and carers, for example, and the lay public accessing information, combining sort of main issues and relating regarding to and in around transplantation through mainstream media. Using social media perhaps has several advantages with standard forms of mainstream media where healthcare is concerned, but both have advantages. Both social media and mainstream media have advantages with regards to reach, accessibility, and through awareness. Using social media versus mainstream media to prompt solid organ transplantation education also offers a broader opportunity in ways as previously unrealized. One investigation looked at college students in a part of the United States, demonstrated that social media-based communication had the greatest impact uh, for for example, college students to sign up to organ donation or solid organ donation registrations, and describe that social media campaigns which that had used, for example, that had used social media traditional social media platforms such as Facebook and YouTube, resulted in around 9,000 documented solid organ donation registrations. And within the college or the organization, the don the solid organ donation registrations documented had increased by 28 by had increased just under 30%, around 28%. And furthermore, whilst traditional online advertising sort of offers the great some advantages in regards to reach. Additionally, when combined with the use of social medias and around social media, it also resulted in an increase in a request for organ donor cards in around solid organ transplantation donor cards and registrations. Thus, the use of social media alongside existing sort of media campaigns, for example, can be seen as being effective in prompting solid organ transplantation education. And one long term condition, or one long-standing condition that surrounds solid organ transplantation is in around CKD, or chronic kidney disease. So now look a little bit. Now look at sort of in around CKD. So CKD is an irreversible sort of condition that has been described in amongst literature as the gradual and usually permanent loss of renal function over time. Early in the process, individuals with CKD can often experience no symptoms for a very long time, and it has been CKD in amongst medical literature sort of generally has been a sort of underdiagnosed condition. Even in the absence of symptoms or symptomologies, CKD appears to add significantly to the burden of sort of primary health conditions. The rate of CKD is increasing, or has been increasingly globally, leading to a greater need for healthcare service users, leading to a greater need for healthcare service users for a need in around for the need for a solid organs or solid organ and transplantation. At the same time, transplantation is not a cure, it's not a permanent cure. However, it is effective. It is an effective form of renal replacement therapy, or kidney replacement therapy, RRT or KRT, KRT and RRT, such as hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis in the treatment of CKD, of in around CKD, and can help to achieve higher prognosis and mortality. At the same time, living renal transplantation accounts for about one third of transplants performed at least in the United Kingdom, with then deceased or cadaveric transplants forming sort of also also a form, also forming a source or a basis for solid organ transplantation. This sort of requirement but low supply amongst populations presents problems at the same time in achieving an optimal cross match or tissue and blood group serology amongst serology investigations where these are less common, where for example the tissue type and cross match, for example, in serology, is less common, or can be less common as part of investigation, as part of some of the preliminary investigations between donors and recipients. And at the same time, at the same time at the same time uh, at the same time this then also can lead those from faith backgrounds and non-faith backgrounds, that is from those from the Muslim faith backgrounds and non-Muslim faith backgrounds, for example, spending increased time on transplant waiting lists. So now look at sort of the aims and objectives. So three questions that form part of the aims and objectives of this work, looking at social media, mainstream media to prompt solid organ transplantation education, and looking at this from a healthcare and CKD healthcare perspective, in around the basis of chronic kidney disease as well. So firstly, can those from the Muslim faith, for example, donate organs? Secondly, is there an Islamic basis or Islamic stance on using social media or mainstream media to prompt solid organ transplantation education? And thirdly, do healthcare professionals such as healthcare scientists or allied health professionals have a role in providing the public education surrounding solid organ transplantation? So now looking at faith, ethics, and tolerance. So Islamic science, or where Islamic or healthcare science is concerned, has always been holistic. The terminology in which of recent origin is at the same time ambiguous. That is to say that the terminologies in around sort of in around sort of the scientific and sort of scientific aspects, sort of specific scientific aspects pertaining to solid organ transplantation, is and has been sort of sort of in somewhat by recent from has been as part of somewhat recent origin, but at the same time is and can be ambiguous, owing to the way the sort of the literature has formed and the evidence has formed in around this. Sometimes it refers only to the recognition of interdependence between mind and body. If theory relates to holism with reference to the Islamic perspective, however, then really it can only refer to the governing principle of Islam. In context of the principle of Islam, there is Tawheed, and that is Tawheed, which is in regard to the oneness of God and the unity that God has created. And it is through sort of trials and tribulation humankind matures and, God willing, begin to face sort of reality of circumstances and challenges. Trials and tribulations also free mankind and humankind from the illusions in which mankind or humankind seek refuge. So any attempt to study phenomena such as solid organ transplantation, solid organ transplantation without reference to scripture, for example, is destined to failure because it has fragmented a link with reality. It is also quintessential to note that religious morality sets limits which do not change with passing public opinion. If mankind or humankind denies world around him or her as a self-evident truth, then humankind is also denying that God is a self-evident truth. Science also a science that is a science science generally like any other sort of specialty has limitations. It is time bound, not timeless, and thus for those within the faith, the scripture, for example, is also referred to as al-Furqan, or that is the criterion, teaching to discriminate not only between good and evil, but also between shades of grey, and the misnomers which are apparent and the misnomers that are apparent in daily life. Scripture in context of the Islamic faith is multifaceted, and it is distinct and has always been for those within the faith and throughout history a premise or basis for decisions and decision making. So now from a healthcare perspective, or healthcare and sort of from a healthcare perspective. So an understanding of patient or individual attitudes towards self and through, for example, the use of tech, for example, could inform unbiased sort of centric services or healthcare services. Moreover, literature informs that the use of social media in particular, and perhaps more generally, provides or offers a gateway for knowledge gathering and decisions or decision making. So social media also can also influence sort of certain tech for healthcare service sort of management, and shaping the development of assessing the appropriateness of social media mediated social media mediated sort of interventions for recipients or individuals where sharing experiences are involved. Overall, a greater a greater a greater overall a greater access in around through the use of social media in around health aspects pertaining to health and healthcare and, for example, in around solid organ transplantation, can help both clinicians and healthcare service users sort of gain sort of more sort of value and understanding in around the strategies for enhancing both important um, important uh, important uh, important 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 in around important topic in around in important topics, um, uh, sort of social media and tech are sort of everyday language. So the at the same time some of the original works in amongst sort of literature that formed Z Bricks and Bash this Z Bricks and Bash interlude here encourages has has looked to sort of encourage sort of or around the literature where literature informs. There has been a sense a sort of a broader coverage of important issues such as solid organ transplantation through the use of uh, social media and mainstream media, so that the public, the public and the lay public, and those from within faith and non-faith backgrounds and populations can make more informed decisions under challenging circumstances. Certainly, social media have sort of place have sort of place, and it's important that such topics are are, uh, uh, and form a sort of discourse to encompass and embody the Muslim and non-Muslim faiths in amongst the Muslim and non-Muslim faiths. In amongst Islam, solid organ transplantation uh, is uh, is is allowed, and God informs that for every disease or every condition there is a cure. Again, where cures are generally much like in life generally are temporary, but solid organ transplantation has or is a cure. More educational campaigns or initiatives through social media, mainstream media, for example, involving different healthcare professionals, and those in amongst those from the Islamic faith and non-Islamic faith or faiths are required. Those who do not, at the same time, those who do not believe in mercy or practice it cannot be expected to be saved by it. In as part of the as part of the conclusions, then, in around the conclusions. So, in relating to the aims and objectives, in related to the aims and objectives, in regard to in relating regarding the aims and objectives, and responding to the questions, the questions. Firstly, can Muslims donate organs? So, firstly, can Muslims or those from Muslim faith donate organs? Yes. So the answer is yes. Yes, and Muslims can donate organs. So whilst there are some perceptions in around solid organ transplantations where those from the Muslim faith or Islamic faith can't donate or cannot donate, these do not represent the broader Islamic world. A campaign sort of or initiative that had prompted the need for increase in around the increased need in around or blood transfusion in around ABO blood grouping and blood transfusion, in around blood transfusion practices and solid organ transplantation from in amongst those from minority population, and those from the Islamic faith had been previously evidenced and published. And there at the same time is no one faith that can claim privileged status regarding the complex and challenging questions in around solid organ transplantation. Secondly, is there Islamic stance or basis on using social media or mainstream media to prompt solid organ transplantation education? So the Islamic stance or the Islamic basis on the use of social media, mainstream media, would be positive to prompt or solid organ transplantation if this helps to increase life expectancy, and if policymakers want to see an increase in solid organ transplantation from the Islamic population, the Islamic faith, sorry, from the Islamic faith, or from the Muslim amongst the Muslim population, and a more inclusive process, uh, healthcare services or healthcare services need to involve those from the Islamic faith, sort of Muslim from Muslim faith, for example, to help inform practice or practices, and specifically and particularly there needs to be further cohesion between producing co-developing policies, and in amongst and sort of those from Islamic and Muslim faith backgrounds in and as part of involvement. Thirdly, do healthcare professionals such as healthcare scientists and allied health professionals have a role providing lay public and the public in around education surrounding solid organ transplantation? The answer is yes. However, research is required to shed light on what is the most effective approach for healthcare professionals to become proactive, to become sort of proactive in and around this, and for those from non-faiths and from those with from faith backgrounds. That draws this audio podcast to a close. This audio podcast as part of the Hyphenate. This audio podcast as part of the BRIX and Bash. This audio podcast as part of a Squall and Crisis and Inspectorate. This audio podcast as part of Interlude and as part of a Storm Robotics production.